Hello and welcome to Forever Sports, and pretty incredible news with the Blitzboks being crowned World Sevens champions in the early hours of the morning. And for a side that have been incredibly inconsistent throughout the season and have looked a bit of a shadow of their former sides at times, they've gone and won it. And I think for me, it kind of also shows you why the format for me just doesn't really work. And they are going to relook the entire format. We are going to see a three-tier type of approach next season and some sort of key events coming in as well. But I do think at the moment the format doesn't really work. However, we've made it work to ourselves because we weren't really in the fight if it was the traditional old sort of table type of vibes. And yet we rocked up in LA for the World Championship. And basically the whole point is that the season gets played and then the sort of top 8 teams go and play in the final round. And the Blitzboks went undefeated throughout the weekend and beat Spain in the final with a very commanding performance to clinch the World Sevens Championship. So, yeah, I mean, it's incredible scenes, really. I mean, this is a side that last season were really, really poor. Probably, I think it was actually the poorest season we've ever had as a Sevens outfit on the Sevens circuit. We then went and smashed and grabbed a bronze medal at the Olympics. And that was kind of hopefully a bit of a turnaround. You know, there was a change in coaching staff, a couple of key players coming back in. And we thought that maybe that was going to be the turnaround. We're going to get back to that consistency. And that was sort of verified really with that win in Cape Town. We thought, wow, really? So the Blitzboks side actually isn't all that bad. We've managed to turn things around. Things are looking promising, and we can really be excited about what's coming up over the season. And then from there, we were just too inconsistent. And I think the biggest problem is that when the Blitzboks didn't play well, they crashed out. And they will never really if they would either go into finals, for example, and even go close to winning it, or they'd crash out before and not even make semis, for example. So we just weren't picking up enough podiums throughout the season. And the likes of Spain, Fiji, for example, were really consistent in that. And Argentina, obviously, who are arguably, for me, they are the best, the Sevens side at the moment. But again, play the format, isn't it? And we got ourselves at the top 8. We sort of stayed at the top 8. In fact, we were pretty much comfortable in sort of that top 3-4 race for the last couple of tournaments. And then we went to LA and we had a job to do, wasn't it? And that was to basically just win. You know, at the end of the day, it was basically a whole series of qualifying events to try and get to this, and then this is the one you want to win. I mean, we are the world champions and we don't have a single player in the dream team. That kind of sort of shows you that we've not been particularly consistent throughout the season. But we rocked up and incredible performances. I mean, we dominated New Zealand in the semi-final. We dominated Spain in the final. And Selvin Davids was man of the match on the final. What a player, by the way. And I mean, he's just, I think when he's playing well, I think he's the best player at the Sevens circuit. I just don't think there's anyone who's got the ability to be able to magic something out of nothing like he does. And he's a special player to watch. But he spoke about the fact that the team just arrived with a job to do. They knew what they had to do. They knew that throughout the season, they were not good enough. And they were not representative of what the Blitzboks brand is about and how much pride there is in that Blitzboks brand. And so they rocked up saying, right, well, we've got to now, we've got it right. We've got to make sure that we show what this side is all about. And I think the Blitzboks have always been characterized by a team that are resilient, and I think for years we were known as this sort of defensive, almost like a dogged type of defense in terms of being relentlessly passionate about not giving up. And I think that kind of maybe sums up the season, the fact that we started off relatively well, then went through a dip, but we sort of kept saying we can get better. We know we're good enough. We know we've got the world class players. We know we can rock up when it counts. This weekend is when it counted, and boy, did they deliver. I do think, again, let's look back at the format. Sevens, for me, is a fun game to watch, and I think it's more of a spectator sport in terms of being there at the game itself. I think it's more something that you enjoy when you're there, a bit more live. But the product at the moment, it's not working. And I mean, in Argentina, Fiji, for example, they've been far more consistent throughout the season. They have one bad tournament in a similar kind of format. Yes, it's a much more competitive format because it's only the top 8 teams. But all of a sudden now, all those years, all those months of work kind of undone. And it's not like, for example, a URC, for example, you got a quarterfinal, semi-finals, final, and yes, your entire season can be undone. So there is sort of that argument, but I do think that it's a series. You've got all these different series where you're picking up points the entire time, and I don't think you actually have to be that good to get yourself into that top 8 to then go to the World Championship Series, and then you've got 3 group games, for example, that you can kind of you flick your way to 2, for example, all of a sudden you can find yourself in a semi-final or final. So, I do think that you really look at the format a bit more, and I actually prefer probably the log system. Every single tournament meaning something, meaning a lot. Where if you had one bomb-out tournament, that could be your entire season over, and you've got to make sure you're consistent throughout the season. And they are relooking the format. There is going to be a whole different format coming for Sevens next season. More events, but more of a sort of staggered tier approach, tier 1, 2, 3 type of situation, which will hopefully help the Sevens women, for example, with a bit more of a pipeline, a bit more of a journey or a road they can travel up to one day being as competitive as the men's side. But I do think they can keep trying to reinvent Sevens, because it's a really cool spectator when you're there sport, and it's a nice vibe. It is not drawing the crowds that I think we'd like to see. Cape Town remains very good. A couple of them are very good, but unfortunately some of them you're only seeing crowds really on the Sunday, and we've got to try and find a way to make sure that we are going where the crowds come. There's no point having a Singapore Sevens, which is a really cool stadium and a nice sort of stop and a nice location, but you've got 4,000 or 5,000 people there. Cape Town I think is doing really well in terms of having a packed Saturday and a packed Sunday, and that's what you need to see. You need to see big crowds and cool crowds that really get involved, and I think they need to target the well-attended Sevens events rather than your traditional sort of Hong Kong Sevens, for example. It's a very traditional tournament in terms of it's always been around, but you've got to make sure the fans are going to buy into it. Dubai Sevens, to be fair, is usually very well supported. That's usually a very cool event, and lots of people rock up for it. So Sevens needs work, but we're not going to care. We are the world champions. Right now, we currently hold the Sevens World Championship title. We are the World Cup champions here in our 15s. So good times if you are a South African rugby supporter. From an international point of view, our women's side, well, I'm very keen to see what they're going to do in the World Cup this year. They're definitely on the up. They're definitely starting to improve as a side, and I think that the ambition of a playoff is not too much of a lofty ambition. I think that can actually happen, to be honest. So from an international point of view, we're very, very happy. Junior box as well, off to a good start in the Rugby Championship, beating Argentina. They've got Australia on Tuesday and New Zealand on Sunday. So interesting to sort of see how they go. So rugby as well, at an international point at the moment. Club-wise, well, we'll have to wait and see how we go in the URC playoff, shall we? Which will be known in the next few weeks as well. Let me know what you thought, though, of the Springbok, or the Blitzboks performance, rather, over the weekend. And where do you think it kind of went wrong throughout the season? Do you think it was too much player turnaround? Players coming in, players coming out? Do you think it is a coaching issue? Philip Stammer being quite inexperienced, although he's now won a World Sevens Championship and a bronze medal, so can't really argue that he's not good enough when he's got those on the credentials. But I do think that maybe a bit of inexperience come showed throughout the season, and be very interested to see what our squad would look like next season. But let me know what you think down in the comments below. Smash the like on the video, subscribe to the channel as well. My name is Steve. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you guys all very soon.